Several years ago, there was an absolutely fascinating study done of America's favorite music. And one of the discoveries was that for many Americans, one of their favorite songs is actually an old hymn, Amazing Grace. Perhaps you know how it goes, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Well, what exactly is grace? And what makes it amazing? You know, when we use the word grace in ordinary conversation, we tend to downsize the word. We'll say things like, she's a very graceful young woman, and we mean she dances well. Or, he's a very gracious host, and we mean he says nice things at dinner parties. We tend to use the word grace in small ways. But when the New Testament uses the word grace, it uses it in a very big way. It's a powerful word. It's an amazing word. In fact, it's so powerful that sometimes grace can be quite uncomfortable. When the New Testament uses the English word grace, it's actually the translation of a Greek word, charis, which means gift. And this is the New Testament's way of saying that at the very center of life, there is a God who is not a punitive judge or a scolding parent, but a God who gives gift after gift after gift. That's grace. I was reading an essay by the Roman Catholic short story writer André Debus the other day, and he said in the story that as a Catholic, he participates in the sacraments of the Roman Catholic Church, Eucharist and baptism and the other sacraments, and he knows that they are signs of grace. But because he participates in the sacraments, he said, he has his eyes open to the fact that life every day actually has thousands of sacraments. The sunshine that comes in the window in the early morning is a sacrament in a way, a gift from God. The wind that blows in the trees is a sacrament. When you touch the hand of someone you love, that's a gift, a sacrament. Even a ham sandwich, he said, can be a sacrament. Now, we often miss these gifts that come to us every day because we're numb to them or we expect them as a part of our entitlement in life. And I think sometimes it takes running up against our limits in life, even our mortality in life, to know what a gift lies at the center of life. I spoke once with a man who had had a severe heart attack, and he said, "It was not until after my heart attack that I began to realize what a precious gift every day is." The New York Times columnist Anatole Broyard, when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer, did not turn bitter, but he began to number his days and began to realize how every day marvelous gifts would come to him. In his journal, he said, "Yesterday, my wife made a hamburger for me, and it was the best hamburger in the history of the world." So when the New Testament talks about grace, it's talking about the gifts that are from God at the heart of life, but it's also talking about more. It's talking about how our very relationship with God is a matter of grace, a matter of gift. If we had to stand before God on our own strength, our own moral character, our own merit, well, none of us would be able to do it. We are human beings, and we are flawed and broken, and so we stand before God as a gift of God. When I was in seminary and preparing to be a minister, in one of my courses, one of the assignments was to spend some time in criminal court, simply observing what was happening there. I quickly discerned that real criminal court is not like Judge Judy or the People's Court or Perry Mason. In a real criminal court, most of the defendants have been there a number of times, and the real question for them is not, will I be found innocent or guilty? Most of them are expecting to be found guilty. The question for them is, who's the judge in court today? Some judges are hard and tough, and some are compassionate and kind, and they're hoping for a judge with some mercy. Well, the Apostle Paul once imagined that all of us were in court, God's court, and we were standing there knowing that we're guilty and wondering, who's the judge today? And then the door to the chambers opens, And the judge is none other than Jesus Christ, who died for us and loved us to the end and loves us still and is our advocate. And the verdict that day was a surprise verdict. We know we're guilty, but the verdict was innocent. I was once talking with a young mother who said that her 8-year-old daughter came to her one day and said, "Mommy, if you've done something bad and you say you're sorry and you really do mean it, can it be okay?" Well, the mother, not knowing exactly what her daughter meant, said to her, "Of course, if you really mean you're sorry, things can be okay." And her daughter said, "Well, you know that piece of furniture that you really love?" Well, her mother did know that piece of furniture. It was a family heirloom, a sofa she had inherited from her great-grandmother. "Yes," the little girl said. "Well, yesterday I was so angry at you, Mommy, I took my crayons and I wrote, 'Stupid Mommy, all over that sofa." The mother groaned inside. That was a family heirloom, but she loved her daughter, and so she said, "Well, because you're very sorry about it, it can be okay." And they went and they got a bucket of water and some rags, and they gently scrubbed that sofa and restored it to the way that it ought to be. And that mother said to me, she said, "You know, I think that's a metaphor for how God treats us. In grace, He cleans us so that we're made like new. It's grace." And when we've experienced this kind of grace, it can be uncomfortable because it lets us know down at the depths of our being that we are not self-made people. Everything that we are, everything that we have, comes as a gift, as the grace of God. In my town, it was in the news recently that there is a luxury apartment building in a very fancy housing district in town, and it was discovered that some of the residents of this apartment building were actually on public assistance. They were what we used to call welfare folks. Well, when that news came out, the homeowners in that very fashionable section of town were outraged. They didn't want their property values coming down, so they demanded and got a public hearing. I watched a little of it on the news, and the first person to go to the microphone was a young mother with a baby on her hip, and her story was that when she got pregnant, her boyfriend took the car and left her with nothing. After the baby was born, she managed to get a job as a maid in one of the local motels, and if she didn't have the apartment, she couldn't have the job, and if she didn't have the job, she couldn't feed the baby, and she begged for the assistance to continue. The next person to the microphone was a homeowner who said that he and his wife had poured their life savings into their home, and they wanted their investment protected. He turned and looked at the young mother with the baby, and he said, "I understand how you feel, but I earned mine, and you're going to have to earn yours." Well, when you have experienced grace, you can never look another human being in the face again and say, "I earned mine, you're going to have to earn yours." Because everything we have is a gift of God. Everything is grace. Everything.